That's interesting.
Because if you click there, you get the drop down list, right?
Right. Hmm. There should be something to go back to role center page.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I thought. And I had a customer ask, and I'm like, huh, that's a good question.
yeah, that's good to know. Let's figure that out. I'll see if I can find something else. Okay, so we have 4 people, but let's start, I guess. And that's my screen. So yeah, today's our 100th BC Open discussion. And as discussed last week, we'll be talking about some things that are in Business Central 2022 Wave 2. So let's see what's there in the agenda. Everybody here is, I guess, more or less is a default attendee, but anybody who's watching the recording later and would like to get invited into the future meeting, then they can just ping me somewhere on social media and put a comment on the video, and I'll make sure you get added. Otherwise, this thing gets updated on Sunday for the next meeting. So you can always go to this link and register. Okay. So the first thing we all have seen it, I'm pretty sure, the company switcher, where you can also access it with the shortcut called Control O, which was a nav so-called shortcut in the past. Um, if you use the what we call that in the company information, if you define certain settings which were used in the past to kind of identify where you are with the colors and all, that is still applicable. That just also colors up your company name here. So if you come here on the company badge and you set something and set a color, and then the badge text, which was earlier 4 characters, I guess in Business Central 19, Microsoft increased it to 6 character. So now you can name it anything, like if this is a test environment, anything within 6 character you can key in here. The color of the badge will be visible here and will also be available on the drop down when you click on it. So that makes it handy to kind of even identify by different colors which environment you are in, and have a visual notification for the user that, oh, if it says red, that maybe I'm on my sandbox environment, and if it is green, then I'm on my production environment, so on and so forth. uh, the other cool thing is that it let you scan all your environments. All the environments that you have are visible here. You can switch to any company, and you can either switch into the same browser tab or you can switch it into the new tab. If you are on a list page, you can actually go to the same page on a new tab, but it's only applicable to the list page. So if you are on purchase orders list, sales orders list, it'll navigate you there. But if you have your card open, then that does not allow you that option. It just allows you to open a new company. But if I'm here on a list page and then I use the switcher, I get an additional option to go to the same list on a new tab on a separate environment. So it keys in the company name, the environment name, and also the page ID here, and it'll automatically switch you to that list page ID that you had been on the previous environment. That's only applicable on the list pages. And I don't think that'll be impossible to do it on a card page. Let's put it this way, because the navigation works from your list to card, and that's how the system understands the record where you are in. So it makes sense that it'll only do it for the list pages that are there in Business Center. In the meantime, while we are discussing anything, if you have any questions, we can surely stop me or put a comment and we can continue talking about that rather than keeping your questions for the later, at the end of it. So let's see what next was there. And this is for the developers. This was a kind of a very common request that was there for a very long time, that if your customer has multiple company and they have an issue which you would like to debug, but the debug scenario is on one specific company, The browser used to remember your last company and it used to default log into that company as far as I remember. But now with Business Central 20, if you are on your Visual Studio Code, and especially if you are debugging, then you are on your sandbox like this, you can also add a new parameter here, which is what would be my startup company. And based on that company name, your Visual Studio Code will remember that you would like to go to that company. What's my second company here? It's my company. So to the space, yes. So if I'm debugging something and I would like to launch it from my client for debugging, and if I use my startup company parameter, and then if I publish this, let me comment this, otherwise it'll keep on messaging every time. If I publish this, it will automatically open my extension on the page 22 in this case, but on my company, not on Cronus, where I was earlier. So I was on Cronus USA, but system understood that parameter that you can define now on your launch.json and exactly go to the right company where you would like to debug the scenario that you're fixing. Pretty small, but people who had worked with customers who have a lot of companies, this feature kind of comes handy where it's easier to launch the right company when you run or debug from your Visual Studio Code. What next? Um, I guess on similar lines, Microsoft did something else and I forgot. But if your customer or if you are using variants on your item, then you can now make it mandatory on your sales and purchase line. And that is again defined on the two places, one globally on your inventory setup page, where it checks that if the item has variants, it makes or mark that field on your lines as mandatory. And you can then turn it off based on per item on your item card. So let's look at, do we have any item variants available? Okay, I don't think that they have a list for it. Let's go to the items page and then let's look at the variants. Okay, related item variants. Okay, there's none on this one, but let's remove the filter on this one. So one of the item had variants. Let's see what item that is. This is our item number SPSCM 1006, which have three variants, black, red, and green, I guess. Let's see. Okay, this is the item. And then from here, I can see that it have variants of black, red, and white. As of today, if it is not enabled, and I don't know is it enabled by default or not, when you try to add an item on a sales order, what happens is as soon as the item number should get validated, it should show us. It's not even showing me the variant field at this moment. Right? Let's enable that. Let's see what happens. So I'll go to inventory setup and then there should be a variant mandatory if exist. Okay. Once we enable this feature, if I go back to my this page, I don't even see the variants yet. That's not added by default. So let's go in and personalize this page and try to add a field. Okay, let's add it here. Oh, okay, let's get done with that. So let's go back and disable this one more time and see the default behavior that was there in the past. So if we can check this, when you validate your item, it'll not warn you as that this is kind of a mandatory field. But now if your customer uses variant, then they should come up and enable variant mandatory if required, and it'll automatically, based on the validation, will show you that variant is needed at this point. If you don't like it on one particular item, I'm pretty sure there is a setup as the documentation says. Let's look at it, what those options are. So here on the general tab, you see this option, when variant mandatory if exists, and then the default is based on whatever is defined on your inventory setup. If for this item, if you don't want to do that, you can then choose those item and make it no. System will respect the value that's here rather than on the setup. So if I say it's not mandatory, and I'll go back and I'll try to validate this again, it should remove the mandatory sign, which helps the user to kind of understand that this is one of the mandatory field in your sales, and I hope in the purchase document also. Will it be? I don't know. Let's see. There's no variant here yet. Okay. I'm pretty sure it'll be on the both the places at this moment. Okay. What else is here? Application area. This is cool. And this saves a lot of work while you're doing your development, especially when there is bunch of fields that you're adding on a page or on a page extension. It was always a problem that the system used to warn you if you enable the code cop till your runtime version 9.0, which is PC 2022 release wave 1. If you have code cop enabled, then it'll warn you that you need to specify the application area. But if you don't enable the code cop, which most of the developer were not doing in past, there were problems when you publish your extension that a user cannot see a field because the application area was not defined on that field. So in the past, application area was mandatory on each field that you add on page or page extension. It was mandatory on each and every action that you add on your page or page extension. In the same way, it was also mandatory on your report request page. It will not be mandatory going forward if your runtime version on your extension is set to 10.0 and any new field action or on the request page of report, if you don't add application area, it will take the default application area of this page itself. So just for example, if you are, let's go back here, let's take a base page. If you are adding something by using a page extension on company information page, it will take the application area as basic and suit automatically for each field that's defined. You don't have to define it for each field as it is done here. Microsoft will keep doing it. You don't have to keep doing it going forward. And there is a reason why Microsoft have to do it, because of the licensing model on SaaS. There are certain fields which are visible based on what kind of licensing you have on Business Central SaaS. So Microsoft will keep doing it, but as a as a developer or as a partner, when you're building customs which you would like to show in all application area, and if you're creating a new page, then you don't have to define the application area on each field. It will automatically default to what's defined on the page itself. But then remember about the page extension. If the application area that's defined on the source page of the page extension is Not, it should not be actually. Let me think about it. It should not be. Like, just for example, why my confusion was there is when you look at the item card, I guess that's where there are different application areas which are present. There are certain fields which are set to all, but then there are fields which are only applicable to invoicing, basic, and suits. And then there are others which will, like manufacturing fields. Let me see where those are. There are surely which are not basic and suite. Okay, let me see if I can find that. Yeah, manufacturing. Now this will only be visible if a customer is licensed for the premium version of Business Central. The users otherwise will see all these fields which are tagged as basic and suite or all or invoicing. But fields like these, which are tagged as manufacturing, will only be applicable for people who have purchased the premium version of Business Central. So that's how Microsoft defines it. In the same way, the service will not be visible. Let's see where it is defined on this environment, and that you can check on company information, I guess. So now I'm on company information. I can see the user experience is set to essentials. So right now, if I open my item card, let's open one item card and let's go back to the VS Code. This is the tab of what tab it is? Inventory, which is called as inventory. I should not see the quantity on production order and quantity on component lines. Okay, let's look at it. So if you see right now, quantity on purchase order is the field, and then directly quantity on sales order, which is quantity on purchase order and quantity on sales order. Also, the service will not be available because that's not part of the basic or the essential plan. So that's how Microsoft is controlling the visibility of field using application area. So when you are creating the page extension for this field, and if you don't define the application area, uh, and this page does not have one, which will be interesting to see what happens in this case. Let's create a page extension for item card and see what happens. Because at this moment, there's nothing defined on the item card. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if I create a page extension for item card. Item card extension. And let me know if I need to zoom this in. Item card. And let's do a add first on my inventory group. Oh, sorry, not layout. And then inside the layout, I would like to do a add first on my inventory group. And then let's add a field. Let's just for the demo, let's create a variable test my field of that boolean. Okay, the page field, and let's do the test my field. And then let's remove the application area and let's remove this property also. So I'm just doing a field addition, no application area defined. It'll be interesting to see, will it show this field caption? Let's do some caption here so that we can easily identify it. And I'm adding it on item card page where there is no application area defined. So let's see what happens now when I publish this. What do you think? Will that be visible? Will that not be visible? Because if it is not visible, then I actually will have to think every time when I'm doing a page extension, that what is the source page application area is. Because logically saying the item card should not have an application area. It should not have the users category more or less, which is a little bit confusing, but hmm, it didn't show it. Okay. So if the page have nothing, it'll take it as nothing, which is weird. Which is not weird, but then that means that whenever we are doing the page extension, we'll always have to review, especially for the card pages, because list pages will have application area. But for some reason, there is no, not some reason. This is 31. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's do, okay, let's add application area. All. And let's comment this out for a while. And let's do the page. Oh, sorry, 31. Okay. So now it should show it. So which means that we will always have to look at the source page in case of page extension to make sure do we need to add the application area or not, if this is visible now, which it is now. Okay, so I didn't thought about it in the past, but now when I saw it, it makes sense. And let's understand why there's no application area or users category on a card page. The combination of application area and users category makes it visible on the search menu. So when I'm in my search menu, I can surely do an item list or items will show me that page because there is a users category and an application area available on this page. But the card pages are not supposed to be searchable based on how the navigation works for Business Central. And that's where Microsoft does not add the application area or users category on the card pages. I'll not be surprised if it is not available on the customer or vendor card like this. Yes, it is not. Okay, so then the new understanding now. Anytime you are doing it, adding a new field on a card page or any such page, make sure you review that on the actual page that does that field is that field sorry is that page is have an application area or not. With this right now, without application area, it should show me on the item list without any issues because item list is a searchable page and will have the application area all set. So with this, it should show me on the item list page if I'm not wrong. Okay, let's go back to the list mode. And am I on the item list? Yes, I am. Did I add it at the wrong place? Item list, application area, basic suite, assembly, and service, which is good. So there is an application area attached. And then I did it at on control one, which is correct at first on my control one. What I am doing wrong in that case, because that's what the explanation or the logical discussion about this field. Hmm. In that case, doesn't this not apply to any page extension? I application area all that be visible now. If this will be, then that means it still holds true for page extensions and and table extension and extension objects, but not for the new objects. I'll have to verify for the new objects. Yeah, now I can see it. Let's do a final test before we close this. T page. Let's create a list page. 50100, and let's do a my item list. Okay. I have an application area available, and the source table is item. Now let's add some page into it, fields into it. Mhm. Okay. Let me add some random fields here. Okay. 4 5 fields. Okay. If you look at it now, even this AZAL extension is not suggesting the application area, which is used to suggest in the past, which is cool. So when I publish this page, it should be showing me. So let's go to the launch and change by startup object ID. Okay. And here it is. So even with this, I can see all the fields without adding any application area on individual fields. Okay, so I correct myself. The page control will not require application area if it's a new page. And if the page itself have an application area defined, but not for the page extension. And I haven't tested it for report extension, but I'm sure that will work in the same way. So if you are still doing page extensions or report extensions where you are modifying the request page of your report, then you will have to define the application area. But for the new objects, pages and reports, you can skip the application area property if it is defined on the page level. But remember, there is no change on users category. For searchability, you will still have to use the users category if it's a list page or if it's a report or if it's a setup page. So that remains as it is, but that as the at the page level, not at the field level. So again, whatever I was assuming is incorrect. Application area is not required when you're creating new pages and when you're creating uh, new reports. But if you're using the old, sorry, if you're extending the base Microsoft pages, it'll still be required. One more thing, if you have a template that you're utilizing while you're creating your new projects in your source control, make sure that only works if your runtime is 10.0 or higher. If I change it to 9.0, which maybe are 7.0, that's okay. Those runtimes are future compatible, but that's kind of a platform thing. So at this point, I just add application area to this. If I'm correct right now, the only field that I should see on this page is this, because my runtime on my app.json is set to 9.0, which means that it should only show me blocked and no other fields on this page when I publish this. So if you work with a template on in your company where you already have a predefined template for each new project that you clone, make sure that the template, sorry, the runtime version in that still shows it. Wow, it should not. That never happened. Do I need to uninstall this extension? Maybe. Extension management and default publisher. Let's uninstall this. Okay. Okay, this is gone. I hope this is gone. No. Okay, unpublish this and bye bye. Okay. Now this time we just have this and we have runtime set to 9.0. So that happens. Let's see what happens. I should technically should only see the blocked field on that. No, still shows all the fields. When did Microsoft change it? This is runtime 9.0, which is for Business Central 2022 release wave 1. Okay, I might have to do a check on it, but I'm pretty sure it never used to work till 9.0. I don't know what just happened on this one. Application areas defined here and nowhere else other than this field. So it should actually not show all the fields. Hmm. Okay, this is interesting. I'm pretty sure somewhere in the past, I guess they changed it because this was not like this in the past. But okay, I'll come back on this one. I'll review this during the weekend and see why it is working like that, even in 9.0. Let's move forward. Okay, let me make a note of this. Okay, application area. All right. Exclude temporary records while debugging record writes. So, people who have worked with debuggers, there was only one setting called break on record write that you can set on your launch.json in the past, which now has been extended. Instead of a boolean, now it have multiple values, which is for sure true. That means you want to break on record writes. False, that you don't want to break your debugger during the record writes. And then also now you have exclude temporary. That means it will break on when the record is being written on an actual table, and it will exclude any table that you have marked as temporary. That just helps when there's a process where there are so many temporary records being written, which you don't want to kind of pause during your debugging sessions. Then that problem goes away when you set this break on record writes to exclude temporary. Okay, now this is super cool addition because this was a nightmare till now. What we were doing is every time we would modify an extension, we had to delete the file about the permission and then recreate it, because that the easy AL extension would help you to kind of build your the permission set extension object or permission set object automatically for all the objects in your extension. This command was existing in the past to generate permission set, but it was generating an XML file in the past, which was an old model of permission, because back then the permission data was stored in tables like permission set, 10 permission and 10 permission sets. When Microsoft changed that model where the permission is not stored as data, but it's actually stored as an object, which gets installed and uninstalled when you install and uninstall your extension, that's where this command was obsolete and was of no use. But with this new update on this command, you can easily use it. And the cool part is you don't have to delete the file. It can actually update the file that you have. So I haven't tested it, but let's give it a test quickly to see how it works. And if you have any questions around permissions, we can surely talk about it. That's not a problem. So for permissions, we'll just create some fake objects. Demo.al. So let's create a code unit 50101. Nothing on that. That's okay. Let's create a table. Okay, 50101, my table, and then this is my customer content, and that's it. Okay, we already have a page 50101. So we added a bunch of objects. So till now, what we used to do is there was this new AL file wizard. Well, say, okay, what I want is I want a permission set for this extension and say, what you would like to call it. And I'll say, this is my demo permission, and I can give it a caption. And then there was this boolean include all extension object, which means all the objects which are defined in this particular extension, include all of them in my permission set. Then I'll do a finish and create this permission set file. Now, if there is a change request where I'm doing more development on this extension, and maybe I add 5 more code units or 2 more tables, I either will have to come here manually and add those items with the permissions assigned to them, or I'll have to delete this file and recreate it so that I can automatically include all the new changes that I've done. But it seems with the command that's available from Microsoft now, I can actually do a 50102, put in a 2, that saves it. And then the command is, and sorry, I'll have to change my runtime to 10.0. That's how the compiler knows about it. I should be able to do a al.generate permission set of current for extension object, current extension object. Now this was the old command. This is still available, which is cool. Now the only time when you'll use it, and I don't know why it's in the Visual Studio Code, is when you are creating tenant permission, which are still valid. A user can create permissions for their users or permission set, and that's the only time when you'll need an XML file. But that doesn't belong to an extension, so I don't know. For me, it should not be there. But let's use this one, the generate permission set as AL object containing in current extension object. Once I do that, I have two options. Would you like to utilize the existing one, or would you like to create a new permission set? I'll say, okay, just update my existing demo permissions. And it was successful. And I see that my new object, whatever those objects that you have added, is already added here. So going forward, if you are creating, you will have to, at least on Business Central versions, you'll need to have a permission set file. So if you are deleting it and recreating it every time you made a change on your extension, you don't have to do it going forward. You can just search for your al.generate permission set as an AL object and just update the existing file if needed. Or if you would like to create a new one, you can also do that from the same menu. Let's see that what happens. Okay, it created a new extension permission set for the extension, which looks more or less same. It have the caption from the AZAL. This does not have the caption. That's the only difference that I see there. Any questions on permissions before we move forward? Okay, if not, then let's move to the next item, which is report layout on request page. Can anyone tell me how you would add a new report layout on a Business Central report as of today? Let's say there is a report and you would like to add, or you would like just would like to change the layout, or you just would like to maybe color some item in that report that's available from Business Central, because that's what your customer requested. We can go a little bit tough, but I guess that's not the intention of this demo. If we have to, we can surely go. But let's assume that this is the report. And in this report, okay, I need to have a customer, I guess. Okay, all customers. Right. This is the report by default. And just for simple explanation, you would like to color this line, the heading of this. Now, what ways you would have done it in Business Central till now? That'll give me clarity of how much you are utilizing the latest features, not just this one, but even the previous one in Business Central. Anyone?
There is a code unit for report management, and it has an on after substitute report. So we can subscribe to that.
I just have to color on the heading, nothing else. As in,
Oh,
so I surely will create a new layout, but
mhm.
what are you using custom report layout selection for that to kind of create a new layout and then set it on each company?
No, what actually does that particular code unit do is it will substitute the base report with the new layout that you have added to the report.
Okay, I guess I'm a little bit confusing, but let me show you what was available till initial versions of nav where it was introduced till Business Central 18-ish, I guess, if I'm not wrong. There was this page called custom report layout where you will always add a report layout, whatever the custom report layout that you'll add. Like in this case, now I know the report number. So what I would have done, I'll say, okay, I would like to create a new one. I'll say new, I'll give the report ID, and I'll say I want to add the RDLC layout. What this will do is this will add a new record into this page, which is this copy of built-in layout. That was part one. And then the part two was to do a report layout selection. And in this page, based on each company, that was a little bit crazy why it was done this way. I will have to come in and say for this report, always use not the RDLC layout, but a custom layout, which is this one, copy of built-in layout, which I just created in the previous window. Did anybody utilize this in the past? The custom report layout?
Yep.
All right. So what you can do now, the way remains same, as you can still download the RDL file using this, and then I'll delete this once I have the RDL file, more or less. Or you can either get it from your product DVD if that's something that you find easy. It's up to you. Once you have the RDL file, and let me see where mine went, and I'll place it in this. Okay, in File Explorer, and let me place it here. Here it is. And hope so it opens on my report builder. Oh no. Okay, that's bad. Okay, let me change the extension of it. That's how it supports it. Okay, let's see if this works. No. Okay. So better let's go to the product DVD because that's easy. Okay. Let me see if I have a BC21 somewhere. Okay, base app. And then in the source, you will surely find the report, but you need to know the report name. That's the summary of it. Summary. The report is okay. Where I was okay here, and then from here we went into price list. Okay. So the report name was list price sheet. Okay. Let's go back here and look for list price sheet star. Okay, here is the report that we were looking for. So what we need to do is we'll just copy this and we'll come back to our VS Code and we'll do a paste of it here. And I'll call it demo. Okay, so on this layout, it's a Microsoft layout. What I'm trying to do is, if this opens, hopefully this one opens. Okay. I'm just trying to color this, which is a change, or you can make other changes if that can be done either via report extensions or not. I just want to color this. Oh, sorry, bad color. Let's do a fill so it's easier. Okay, I made this change and I call it as demo list price sheet. Now what I can do is I can come here and I can delete this fake object that I just created, delete this permission file if needed, and come back here. I can do a T report extension. And this time I'm doing it on, what is that report name? List price sheet. Okay. List price sheet. Oh, it's already disabled, but that's okay. It's time future. And my list price. I'm not making any changes on the dataset, but if you need for whatever you are doing, you can surely make changes, additive changes on your dataset. You can add new fields from the source tables and all. You can surely make changes on the request page if needed. But for this, I'm not doing this. And if you don't know, Microsoft did add this section in Business Central 19 called rendering. So instead of defining a RDLC layout here, you can now have, when you're building a new report, you can actually have multiple layouts using this rendering section. When you're building a new report, in the same way, we'll do it here. This is my layout, and then it is of type RDLC, and the layout file is, where is it? Here. It's called demo price sheet dot RDLC, I guess. Yes. Okay, so I tell this that this is on my this path dot RDLC. There are no folders on it. If you have folders like source and reports, then you should give it like Microsoft have done here. But if you don't have it, like mine is pretty straightforward, then I just do a dot slash and the file name like I've done here. And then there are other options. Yes, there is a caption, there is a type we have already added, and layout file we have added. And at the same time, if you have multiple layouts, you can also add this again. So I can say this is my layout 2. This time it's all RDLC, and this time the file is called 2. So let's do a build of this. It'll automatically generate a fake file for RDLC2, which is empty. So if I open it externally, where is that? It'll be empty. There'll be nothing on the sheet 2 file because I just generated it based on the build process. So it's empty. But the cool part is not this. This, I guess, we would have talked about in Business Central 19 if you were attending those meetings. But the cool part is now you can do a publish, and these layouts will be part of the two benefits. First, these layouts will be part of your extension. They will not be part of the data that they used to be based on the custom report layout. The problem with the custom report layout was that anyone can anytime modify those, and you will not have a control on who modified the layout. Because I can come here and I can search as a user if I have permission for custom report layouts and see a report layout, let's say, which was built by Rishikesh, and say, oh, let's download it and let's modify it, like all these world layout, which are used for emailing. So that was kind of a limiting, and you as a developer or as a partner did not have any control on these custom report layouts, and they were tricky to manage. But with Business Central 19, and okay, that's not a problem. With Business Central 19, these layouts now can be defined using report extensions, and you can add multiple layouts if your customer needs them. But with Business Central 21, now when I go to my items, search for my report price list, I can actually see all the layouts here. My layout, my layout too, which are part of my extension, not from Microsoft, and then choose which one I would like to run right now. So if I say my layout, click OK, then do all customers. If everything goes well, I will see the changes that I have done on my layout, and user can decide at the runtime which layout they would like to run. They get all the options. But if your customer says that all that looks good, but most of our customer don't use the Microsoft layout, but they use the my layout as the preferred layout, can we make this as a default layout? That's where in Business Central 19, not in 20, you can actually search for a page called report layouts, which is store all your layouts. Forget about custom report layout selection and everything. This will this is one stop solution for all your layouts, irrespective of which extensions they are coming from, irrespective of by Microsoft, partner, ISV. All the layouts for each and every report will be available here. And then you can check in that which of them are coming from extension, are they user defined, even the Microsoft one are from extension. But then let's see what the report ID was so that I can filter it. This was 10148. You can filter this out saying I want report ID and see all the report layouts for this, which is these. And as my customer said that everybody would like to utilize the my layout as a default, I can just set it default. Once you set it default, it is default for each and every company. You don't have to do it for each company individually. If you still have a need where your customer would need a different layout per company wise, you can still use the report layout selection page if there is a need. So that's based on what your customer want. If they say, oh, for Cronus USA, whatever the report that you have, the layout that you have set by default on here is okay. But for my company, which is my second company, I would like this to change to this, then you can change that from there. Now, the default one is this. Now, when I come here and I say price list, the default selection would be my layout, and then it will automatically run. So when you're working on reports, remember these changes because they help you to kind of have some control on who makes changes on the layout that you have built and who can modify them. If you utilize the power of report extension and the new rendering section, you can store all your custom layout as a part of your extension rather than as data. And at the same time, it let you see all those layouts in one single page. And then also for users, maybe while they are testing, you can have an additional layout added. And until unless they kind of verify your layout, it just sits in as a secondary layout. Once everything looks good on the testing, you can just make that as a primary layout. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, going forward, this is interesting, but this will be a little bit time consuming, and maybe we'll catch up on this in the next week. Microsoft did make some changes around for the new users who are using Business Central. So in the Business Central world, when you will deploy an extension, either a pertinent extension or an extension from Microsoft, or sorry, from App Source, the problem was it was very hard for users to see how I actually set up this extension, because there are some which will give you some instructions around it, some which will give you no instructions about it. So to kind of make it simple, what Microsoft did is they added a new action here called setup. This will allow you to define a setup process for your extension. Now, that's not a mandatory like you see on this Microsoft extension. This app does not have a setup. But if there is an app where there is a setup needed, it will automatically navigate you to that setup. You can define a wizard over there. You can have multiple setup options. Like if you go to your base app and you try to set it up right now, it'll show you a list of activities that you need to complete to set up based on whatever areas of Business Central you use. And then you can see that, oh, I would like to set up approval workflow, and it'll take you to a wizard to set it up. Now think about if you are an app developer who are building apps for app stores, maybe, then you can include this feature in your extension. And it is not just only limited to developers who are building apps for app stores. Even if you are building an app for your customer and you think it's needed where you can define a setup, you can actually do it via code. And that will show you uh, the the process or the setup of that. We'll see how we can do it. It was a little bit trickier to find, but because the time is limited, we'll surely cover it next week. And before we end, I guess there was one small feature that I would like to talk about, which is pretty handy for developers. While you're doing your development, it was always a nightmare. Either you had been a pretty expert nav developer who knows the primary key of each and every possible table, but people who are new and not just the nav people who are old will remember this. But people like me, when there are tricky tables, it's always hard to remember what fields go in what order. When you are doing a get or when you are doing an insert, you need to know the primary keys, that fields that you need to assign value to. The IntelliSense and Business Central will started suggesting you the primary key fields in that particular record that you're pointing to, and will also help you to guide you around the order of those. So if I create, let's say, a sales header, and if I'm creating a procedure here, and then I say sales header dot, and if I hover over this, it'll show me the PK1 and PK2, which means the primary key field 1 and primary key field 2, which means if I'm doing a get on sales order, I first need to define my document type and then my number to get a record from sales header. In the same way, it shows you all. I'm surprised that they are not showing it sequentially, because there are some table where there is a pretty long primary key. Okay, but the number is not the third field, is it? Or it is not? I don't know. Let's quickly have a look on that. Document type is first field and the number is third field. Okay, so nothing changed. What about, there was a table which had a bad key. Not a bad key, but pretty long key. What happens on item journal? Because item journal fields are not in sequence. They're not at 1 or 3. I guess that's my confusion. Primary key field 1, primary key field 3, but for primary key field 2, I'll have to go down. Oh. It would have been cool if these fields were kept on the top. Because I'm not looking for the sequence. I guess what I'm looking at is, can I see all my primary key fields from top down? So that's easier to identify what fields I need to key in. I'm not looking at the field numbers, which I guess this view is trying to suggest. That the field number 1 and 2 are here, but the primary key field 2 is actually here. Which is cool to a certain extent, but I would love if this field actually comes here before line number and after general template. That'll actually give me the view and the sequence in a pretty good way rather than going down and then identifying what the other fields are. Okay. At least something is there. We'll talk about rest, I guess, in the next meeting. Anything else anybody would like to ask or any other questions that we can talk about? Okay, in that case, see you next week, same time.
Yeah, hi Saurabh. I had one question. Like,
Go
is
ahead.
there anything? Yeah, is there anything in any update on primary key that we can update in SAS version or
No,
something like that?
no.
We have to
Um,
make a new table, right, for that?
you will have to make a new table and think about it from the perspective of how SAS works. I doubt that will ever be possible. On a multi-tenant environment, what is in SAS, it's kind of impossible to allow you to have a primary key change. And even if you do that, somehow, whenever the next update comes, how Microsoft will keep that in sync is, and maybe I'm thinking from a narrow mindset, but I'm pretty sure it's not possible, and it's something that even Microsoft considering. I don't think that they are considering that at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank
See
you,
you then.
sir, and congratulations on like 100th session.
You guys made it,
Yeah.
man. I did not. You guys were not here. I'll not do it. So
Thank
thanks to you guys that you guys were here so that we were able to do it.
you.
Okay. See you then next week.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.